If the Force is capable of feeling emotions, it must have lived in fear of the Sith Triumvirate. Darth Sion, the Undying Revenant, he could have killed every single Force sensitive appearing in the galaxy, the Force's greatest agents, then kept on killing as if he was trying to kill everyone. Darth Nihilus, a veritable force of nature, who definitely would have killed every living thing in the galaxy. And as we all know, the Force cannot exist without life. Darth Kreia, the single greatest rival the Force has ever had, another being capable of manipulation on a galactic scale, and extremely perceptive of the Force and its actions.
I once held the galaxy by the throat. I wielded power like you cannot imagine. Everything I saw was awash with possibilities, spreading outwards, touching everything else. I saw all of that, all that the Force is. And only when it was ripped from me did I truly see it.
Jedi struggled to understand the will of the Force so they could follow it, but Kreia rebelled against it, specifically because she understood the Force so well, and that's what made her dangerous. She and certain others were out of control. That's what makes them also dangerous to the Force. But is it possible to still have some sort of influence over them? And is that what Kreia was trying to teach the exile to fight against? We know that the Force flows through all living things. When you're born, it's there. When you die, it's there. But we also know of ways to avoid or at least mitigate the Force's manipulations. The easiest way is simple: be an atheist.
Revan believed that meatbags that did not use or believe in the Force were especially important, since in many respects, they were more difficult for Jedi to detect.
A secondary way is to have balance between the light and the dark sides of the Force. If you're a regular person, atheist or not, this is generally where people tend to end up. This is a feat that is significantly more difficult for Force sensitives.
Many are the times I meditate in the silence of my chambers. Do you know why I do this? I do this so that I might center myself, listen to the currents of the galaxy.
The third way is the most difficult of all to achieve, and that's becoming a wound in the Force. Extreme trauma creates them, while also bringing with them some serious side effects. But it is the most foolproof way of disconnecting from the will of the Force, at least in a direct sense. The Force can't directly influence someone who is a wound, but it can still influence the people around them. It can still influence other animals and even the environment to a degree.
The Force has guided us here for a reason. There was something from your past here, something unresolved. I feel we did not come to this place by chance. You were led here.
In the case of Darth Sion and Darth Nihilus, there was almost nothing the Force could do. They were too hyper-focused on what they were doing, they were too solitary, being completely disconnected from society, and the people who were around them were essentially zombies. But what about the Jedi exile? Throughout the exile's journey, they encounter more and more people that end up joining them, mostly Force sensitives who are drawn to them because they're a wound in the Force.
The stronger your connection to life, to the Force, the stronger these echoes can be made, and the stronger they are felt. When heard, Force sensitives instinctively seek out the source, are drawn to it to try and form a connection.
In this context, Force sensitives behave like red blood cells. They rush towards a wound to try and coagulate and seal it, to allow it to quote-unquote heal, by effectively bringing it back under control.
Healing is manipulation, and if you do not realize it yet, then you will discover that an act of healing depends largely on your perspective.
The Force, which is seemingly created by living organisms, itself reacts in a similar fashion to an organic. And of course, none of this is calculated, that's just how it works. However, Kreia does not view this as being within the exile's or her own best interest. More people around more often means more opportunity for them to do or say things that can influence the exile in undesirable ways. But regardless of whether that was happening, Kreia had to teach the exile certain techniques to avoid and or mitigate external influences. We all notice Kreia putting these techniques into practice the entire game.
How many more do we intend to gather to us? This ship is not the galaxy. There is only so much room. The Sith carry the battle to you, and you spare them. And as we travel, the empty places of this ship are filled.
Kreia always remained disconnected from the other party members. She wouldn't form any kind of bond with any of them, so much so that she wouldn't even refer to them by their names.
The servant of Atris, the blinded one, the disciple, the red-maned huntress, the alien beast, the fool.
Many people assume that she does this because she's mean or disrespectful, but chances are this act had its own purpose too. We always have to question Kreia's actions. Almost everything about her is calculated. She would only interact with them as much as it was necessary to manipulate them.
I have seen what you have seen, the slow seduction of the Sith. Perhaps we are more allies than you know. I fear the exile has let his feelings for the Miraluka affect his judgment, and it will doom him.
There is still hope.
I do not believe so, and neither do you.
And she tried to teach the exile that they should do the same.
Use their dependency, feed upon it, until you have exhausted them. Then leave them. And I would view the ones you travel with much the same way. Your allies are allies by circumstance, and they will not hesitate to do the same to you if you continue down your path. Now you are learning.
Now you may say that this isn't a good enough reason to avoid people or to connect with them. This is specific to the Jedi exile, a wound in the Force. That, coupled with her mission and present circumstances, demand the lack of distractions, at least according to Kreia. I explained before why Kreia prefers to keep her eyesight the way it is. It's for a similar reason.
Be warned, unresolved events from our past can create wounds in the present and the future. And more importantly, they can distract you, weaken you. It could prove fatal against the enemies we face. There is nothing wrong with my eyes. They simply have atrophied from use. They are adequate to distinguish shapes, silhouettes. If need be, I could heal them, restore my sight, but sight can prove a distraction.
What if your party members hate you, you may ask? Unfortunately, that won't work either. Negative influence is also a type of influence. Have you ever known anyone that quote-unquote hate watches a certain content? The same applies here. Just like with the Force, whether light or dark, it gets into you, and its power over you becomes stronger the more light or dark you become. The exile's influence was essentially competing with the Force for control over the party members. The ideal situation might seem to be for the exile to have full influence over someone who is perfectly centered in the Force, to ensure maximum exile influence, but that's not feasible. With so many party members and diverse personalities, achieving this with everyone is impossible. The Force always remains dominant with someone. The only person you could reliably reach that with was Kreia. Her alignment isn't dependent on yours, but even if you could reach that ideal with everyone, it would still be ill-advised for the exile to bond with others, especially other Force sensitives. The wound has to stay open, if you will, because, and this is not hyperbole, it could end all life in the galaxy.
You have taught them to bond with others, and then feed on others through that bond. What you have brought is the death of all who can feel the Force. It is your gift to the galaxy, exile. And unless you hear it, and silence the echo you have caused, then every living thing everywhere that is touched by the Force will die.
Humans are social animals at their core. Even if staying away from others and not forming connections is the right thing to do, it doesn't take away the desire to. That includes Kreia. She doesn't want to be manipulated by the Force directly or indirectly. But despite what she might say, Kreia is still human.
I am too old for friends.
This is another thing that the Jedi exile was able to provide for her. Kreia can't be indirectly manipulated by the Force through the exile. Finally, she had someone that she could connect with, that she could bond with, that she could be friends with.
In case you hadn't noticed, she won't say 2 words to me, but she'll talk your ear off any chance she gets.
I would have killed the galaxy to preserve you. I would have let the galaxy die.
Finally, Kreia had someone she could love.